The first Christmas, you know it's a myth. That is the um, message printed on the now infamous bus advertisement, the billboard on the side of the bus. Uh, and Yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit about this billboard. Uh, I believe it was this time last year when there was another bus campaign, which I think it was like Imagine No Religion, and it had a picture of the Twin Towers or something like that. Uh, at any rate, this one is, I believe, paid for by the foundation Madeline Murray O'Hair had started. But yeah, I wanted to make a few comments on it. Um, and I think it kind of reminds me a little bit about something that I saw in the Young Turks. Um, they were talking about how some people in the uh, post-Christian community, the once Christian now anti-Christian community, anti-Christianity community, were getting debaptized, and they would take a hair dryer, and they had the word reason on it, and they'd blow dry themselves to dry the water off them. And the kind of the subtitle or whatever you want to call it of the uh, bus ad, the new one is celebrate reason this year, and know KNOW and reason REASON are bigger than the other words in these statements. So yeah, I just wanted to comment on this. The first observation that I had is that the certain atheists will speak of uh, reason as though they had a monopoly on it, um, and that's just not true. Um, for example, in the Middle Ages, Thomas Aquinas was probably the smartest person alive at that in those. Um, I'm not sure exactly how long the Middle Ages ran. I think from about 400 AD to uh, about 1500, very roughly. But he was during those centuries, he was the smartest person, and it's not because everybody else was dumb. It's because he was really smart. Uh, you have Aristotle and Plato. They were not Christians, so they didn't, and that was before the first Christmas. But they did have. They were certainly rational people, and they did believe in some type of um, god or gods. Um, so I think that and during the Islamic Renaissance, you have various Muslim thinkers, Averroes, for example, who were very reasonable people who believed in God. Um, so I think that to be an atheist or an agnostic is not to have a monopoly on reason, and this is even more uh, uh, surprising that people would say that these kinds of things when we consider that in the Bible, which I accept as true and authoritative. I know some of my viewers don't share that opinion, but that's my own source of authority as I see things. And it says in John chapter 1 verse 1 that in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Now, the Greek term for word, W-O-R-D, is logos, and logos is where we get the term in English logic. So it's always dangerous to read later etymological derivations back into prior words. But I would say that logic itself um, is kind of fulfilled in Christ. That Jesus is the logic. You can't have logic, in other words, without having Christ. Now that's a radical claim, and you may disagree with it, but that's my own personal view. So if you're going to say, well, I'm using logic to argue against Jesus Christ, uh, it's like you're sitting on the wrong end of the tree limb while you're sawing through it. So you're going to fall when the limb falls. Um, yeah, so it seems that to me at least that unbelievers that are openly atheistic and hostile to the faith are actually being irrational. They're using reason to argue against reason, and atheism kind of devolves into rationality as opposed to being rational and reasonable. Um, the second observation is the word myth. Now, the word myth in um, academic circles, at least, has it's kind of ambiguous. There's a variety of different meanings that it can have, uh, but I think in this context it means this did not happen in the context of this ad. But we know from history, even if we do not believe that Jesus is God incarnate and born of a virgin, we do know that he lived, so therefore he was born. So in that sense, Christmas, the first Christmas, is not a myth. We know that it happened. Um, the third observation is that uh, the on the billboard on the bus, it shows three wise men coming to see uh, the baby Jesus. Well, the fact is that the Bible nowhere says that three wise men came to visit Jesus. It says wise men came to visit him, but it doesn't say there was three of them. That may be a bit of anal nitpicking, but and that is the traditional pictorial representation of Christmas. You know, you have the wise men coming on camels to the creche or the manger, uh, but that's not a biblical inference. That's a traditional inference, which is probably false. Um, Probably there was more than just three. And the wise men didn't come to the manger, according to the Bible, to see Jesus after he was born, immediately after he was born. Rather, they waited a period of about 2 years, and as I recall, he was, I think, in Nazareth, in a house. So he was, say a toddler in a house, a couple years after the birth, after Christmas, the first Christmas, when the wise men showed up. Otherwise, why would Herod say that all children 2 years of age and under should be slaughtered? And it does say that the uh, I forget exactly how it's worded, but it does say, I think, that in so many words, that this was, afterwards, after they had left the manger, the inn where there was no room for them, and they went to this house where they lived, Joseph, Mary, and Jesus. So again, these may be parts of how the story is normally represented at Christmas time in churches. Even there's living nativities that you see where the baby is born in the at the inn, and they come immediately to visit. And but it may be like a house, what's shown on the billboard, not a manger, but it's not at Christmas time. That's just kind of thrown in because when people uh, preach on Christmas in Christmas services at churches, when they preach about and talk about the birth of Jesus, they include that because as part of the pericope that includes the first Christmas, but it actually goes beyond it by at least a couple of years. So all sorts of problems with this kind of thing. But as far as being a myth in the sense of it not being true, as I said, that's simply false. It may be argued that perhaps it wasn't a miraculous thing, it wasn't a virgin birth, it wasn't God Himself putting on human flesh, God with us, Emmanuel. But Jesus was born, so there was a first Christmas. It's not a myth. We don't have to be believe in God even to admit that. Um, and but just know our history. Um, Celebrate reason. Well, reason, even if not a monopoly of Christianity, is certainly something that Christians are not opposed to. Um, Jesus said, "I am the truth," uh, and uh, all through the Bible, we are encouraged to use our minds, to use reason, to examine evidence for ourselves if God is real or not. The Jesus himself and the various apostles use apologetics, use reason to try to prove their claims. They don't just ask us to accept them, take them at face value. Uh, all of Western philosophy, I would say, is not so much a footnote to Plato as it is a footnote to Moses and Jesus and the Apostle Paul and so on. Uh, yeah, so uh, and uh, also, how do these people know that it is a myth? It says, the person reading the sign knows that this is a myth. It seems there really isn't any way to know that other than examining history. And when we do, we see that yes, Jesus was born. He lived, so he must have been born. Uh, how can you argue against that? It doesn't. I don't know. It's kind of a PR or propaganda move, perhaps, on the part of the American Atheist Association. I think that's the name of the people doing this. Uh, so yeah, there's excuse me, Christmas season is upon us, and those of us who are Christians and even some other people will be celebrating it. Uh, I don't know. It seems like they're making a lot of heat, but not shedding any light on anything, and it's kind of silly that they would do this. But it's a free country, so I guess you can say whatever you want, freedom of speech and all that jazz, which I suppose is a good thing. I have no problem with that. So they have the right to do that, but yeah, it's a mountain out of a molehill kind of thing. Well, those are just my observations, and yeah, so be sure to observe Moroni 818 Day next month.